Hello. We've talked about random variables now. When we have some variable that can take different values, we may have some idea about what those values could be, but we don't know what actual value we will end up with. That's what makes a variable a random variable, that element of randomness, the unknown aspect of it. Well, a great example of that is a really useful one for us to work with. Your grade in a class, such as this class, is a random variable, right? We know that it can take certain values. You could get 0%, you could get 100%, you could get somewhere in between those. Maybe you could even get 102% with extra credit. Who knows, right? So we have some idea of what range it can take, and we have some idea of how likely it is. No one is getting a 0% in a class unless they do absolutely nothing, right? And most people are not getting 100% or higher than 100% unless they do really well on almost all the different assignments. So we know that those are unlikely outcomes. We might have some idea about where the curve would be. We often hear people talk about that, right? Where most people in a class will get, say, a B. That would mean the curve is centered around a B, and we would have some people getting A's, and we would have some people probably getting C's, and we have quite a few people getting B's. That's what we talk about with a curve, something that a professor like me will often use if there's an assignment that that the grades don't end up coming out the way we envision them, or maybe it's done purposefully. You just want to create a really hard assignment, but you don't want the grades to reflect that everyone struggled with this assignment. You just wanted them to have a hard assignment that they would struggle a little with. That can be a good learning tool. But if you want to move the grades up, a lot of times you'll kind of fit it to a curve of what you think the grade distribution should look like. We talked about distributions of quantitative variables. This is where we're coming together with that, right? So we would look at a histogram and describe what the distribution of a variable would look like. Would it be symmetric? Would it be unimodal or bimodal? Would it be skewed? So now is when we talk about a distribution for a random variable, and specifically with grades, we're going to work with the expected value of the grade a little bit. So in Blackboard, assuming you're listening to this and you're part of the stats class, ECON 206. So on Blackboard there are a couple new columns. One of them is what your grade for the course will look like if you choose not to take the final. So I repeat from earlier that if you choose not to take the final, you can have your quiz grades be used as your final grade. So your average quiz grade would be your final grade, or another way to think of it is reweight your quizzes so they're each worth more, and those points make up what would be the final points. So if you choose not to take the final, you can see in that column what your grade for the course will look like. There's a column next to it that says what your final grade looks like before the final. So if you do choose to take the final, then we can tell you what your grade looks like based on the 80% of your grade that's based on other things, quizzes, homework, and class discussions, etc. The last 20% will be based on the final exam score, which we don't know yet. So your grade without the final is actually, it's a variable with a known value. What your final grade looks like if you do take the final, that's still a random variable without a known value, right? Because we don't know how you will do it on the final if you choose to take it. So what I recommend you do is go to the content section and download a spreadsheet that's there. It's right at the very top. It says grade as a random variable. It's got a simple worksheet in it where you type in or paste in what your grade is before the final, so that's the last column in the Blackboard grade book, and it'll weight that with 80%. And then there's another place where you can put in how you think you might do on the final. And you can type in some different values. Type in, well, if I bomb it and I get a 60%, what happens? If I do okay and I get a B, what happens? If I knock it out of the park and get an A, what happens? And you'll see, based on these different guesses as to how you might do on the final exam, what your final grade for the course will look like. So hopefully this is a useful tool when you're thinking about two things. One, do I want to take the final exam or not? Because you've got a known value of the grade if you choose not to take the final versus a random variable, an unknown, but you can make educated guesses about how you'll do. The other thing this might be useful for is because of the extenuating circumstances this semester, you have the option at Western Kentucky of choosing to take this class for normal grades or to take it with what they call a PDF option, where you get a grade of either pass or D or F, with the pass grade not affecting your GPA. So if you are looking at, say, getting a C in the class, and if that would pull down your GPA, it might make sense to take the PDF grading option, and then it won't affect your GPA. Although if you're in the D or F range, at least my understanding is that still will actually affect your GPA. So if you are in that range, what you want to do is reach out to me. We'll talk about ways that we can try to help you out and make sure we understand the core concepts of the class and get you in a position to pass. So hopefully that's helpful. I'll be giving more information about what the final exam will look like for those who choose to take it. It's going to be mostly multiple choice, but I don't have the exact details on that yet. There's going to be some content coming up that is for both weeks 12 and 13. So the last chunk of content for the class is coming soon. So I look forward to that and seeing you soon.